Random House Audiobooks presents The Wine-Dark Sea by Patrick O'Brien. Read for you by Tim Pigott-Smith. The Wine-Dark Sea. A purple ocean, vast under the sky, and devoid of all visible life, apart from two minute ships racing across its immensity. They were as close-hauled to the somewhat irregular northeast trades as ever they could be. With every sail they could safely carry, and even more. Their bowlines twanging taut, they had been running like this day after day, sometimes so far apart that each saw only the other's topsails above the horizon, sometimes within gunshot, and when this was the case, they fired at one another with their chasers. The foremost ship was the Franklin, an American privateer of 22 guns, 9-pounders, and her pursuer was the Surprise, a 28-gun frigate, formerly belonging to the Royal Navy, but now acting as a privateer too, manned by privateersmen and volunteers. She was nominally commanded by a half-pay officer named Thomas Pullings, but in fact by her former captain, Jack Aubrey, a man much higher on the post-captain's list than would ordinarily have been found in so small and antiquated a ship. An anomalous craft entirely, for although she purported to be a privateer, her official, though unpublished, status was that of His Majesty's hired vessel, Surprise. She had set out on her voyage with the purpose of carrying her surgeon, Stephen Maturin, to South America, there to enter into contact with those leading inhabitants who wished to make Chile and Peru independent of Spain. For Maturin, as well as being a doctor of medicine, was an intelligence agent, exceptionally well qualified for this task, being a Catalan on his mother's side, and bitterly opposed to Spanish, that is to say Castilian, oppression of his country. He was indeed opposed to oppression in all its forms, and in his youth he had supported the United Irishmen. His father was a Catholic Irish officer in the Spanish service, in everything but the violence of 1798. But above all, far above all, he abhorred that of Bonaparte, and he was perfectly willing to offer his services to the British government to help put an end to it, to offer them gratis pro deo, thus doing away with any hint of the odious name of spy, a vile wretch hired by the ministry to inform upon his friends. His present undertaking, resumed after a long interruption caused by the traitorous passing of information from London to Madrid, gave him the greatest satisfaction, for its success would not only weaken the two oppressors, but it would also cause extreme anger and frustration in a particular department of French intelligence that was trying to bring about the same result, though with the difference that the independent South American governments should feel loving and strategically valuable gratitude towards Paris rather than London. He had many causes for satisfaction since they left the Polynesian island of Oahu in pursuit of the Franklin. One was that the American privateer had chosen to rely on her remarkable powers of sailing very close to the wind, on a course that was leading them directly towards his destination. Another was that every successive noonday observation showed them slanting rapidly down towards the equator, and some 200 miles or more closer to Peru, a country that Dr. Maturin associated not only with potential independence, but also with the coca plant, a shrub whose dried leaves he, like the Peruvians, was accustomed to chew as a relief from mental or spiritual distress and physical or intellectual weariness. Rats, however, had eaten his store of leaves somewhere south of Capricorn. Coca leaves could not be replaced in New South Wales, where the Surprise had spent some dismal weeks, and he looked forward eagerly to a fresh supply. Ever since he last heard from his wife, letters had caught up with the ship off Norfolk Island. He had felt a deep indwelling anxiety about her, and the coca leaves might at least dispel the irrational part of it. They sharpened the mind wonderfully, and he welcomed the prospect of that familiar taste, the deadening of the inside of his mouth and pharynx, and the calming of his spirit, in what he termed a virtuous ataraxy, a freedom that owed nothing to alcohol, that contemptible refuge, nor even to his old love opium, which might be objected to on physical and even perhaps on moral grounds. This was scarcely a subject that so discreet, private, and indeed secretive a person as Stephen Maturin was likely to discuss, and all he said to his companion was, "It is a great satisfaction to see the ocean a colour so near to that of new wine as it comes gushing from the press." He and Nathaniel Martin, his assistant surgeon, were standing in the frigate's beakhead, a roughly triangular place in front of and below the forecastle, the very foremost part of the ship where the bowsprit reached out, and where the medicos were least in the way, not only of the hands trimming the sails to capture the greatest possible thrust from the wind, but, and above all, of the gunners, serving the two bow chasers on the forecastle. The guns were commanded by Captain Aubrey, who pointed and fired the windward chaser, and by Captain Pullings, who did the same for the leeward gun. They both had much the same style of firing, which was not surprising, since Captain Pullings had been one of Jack's midshipmen in his first command a great while ago, and had learnt all his practical gunnery from him. They were now very carefully aiming their pieces at the Franklin's topsail yards, with the intent of cutting halyards, backstays, and even with luck of wounding the mainyard itself, in any case of delaying her progress without damage to her hull. There was no point in battering the hull of a prize, and a prize the Franklin seemed fated to be in the long run, perhaps even today, since the surprise was perceptibly gaining. "The captain does not like it, however," observed Maturin, referring to the wine-dark sea. "He says it is not natural. He admits the colour, which we have all seen in the Mediterranean on occasion. He admits the swell, which, though unusually broad, is not rare, but the colour and the swell together." The crash and rumble of the captain's gun, followed with scarcely a pause by Pullings, cut him short. Smoke and smouldering scraps of wad whistled about their heads. Yet even before they swept away to leeward, Stephen had his spyglass to his eye. In 3 heartbeats he saw a hole appear low in the Frenchman's topsail, joining a score of others. To his astonishment he also saw a jet of water shoot from her lee scuppers, and above him he heard Tom Pullings cry, "They're starting their water, sir." "What does this signify?" asked Martin. He had not applied to a very valuable source, Dr. Maturin being strictly a land animal, but in this case Stephen could truthfully reply that they were pumping their fresh water over the side to lighten the ship and make it go faster. Perhaps they may also throw their guns and boats overboard. I have seen it done. A savage cheer from all the surprises in the fore part of the ship showed him that he was seeing it again, and having watched the first few splashes, he passed Martin the glass. The boats went overboard, and the guns, but not quite all the guns. As the Franklin's speed increased, her 2 stern chasers fired together, the white smoke streaming away across her wake. "How disagreeable it is to be fired at," said Martin, and as he spoke one ball hit the best bower anchor close behind them with an enormous clang. The sharp fragments, together with the second ball, cut away almost all the fore-topgallant-mast's support. The mast and its attendant canvas fell quite slowly, spars breaking right and left, and the Surprise's bow chasers just had time to reply, both shots striking the Franklin's stern. But before either Jack's or Pulling's crew could reload their guns, they were enveloped in sailcloth, whilst at the same time all hands aft raised the cry, "Man overboard!" and the ship flew up into the wind, all her sails clattering like a madhouse. The Franklin fired a single gun, an extraordinary report, but it was drowned by Captain Aubrey's roar of, Clew up there!" and emerging from the canvas, "Where away?" "Larboard quarter, sir. It's Mr. Reed." "Carry on, Captain Pulling," said Jack, whipping off his shirt and diving straight into the sea. He was a powerful swimmer, the only one in the ship. Mr. Reed, a midshipman of 14, had never been able to do much more than keep afloat, and since losing an arm in a recent battle he had not bathed at all. Fortunately, the remaining arm was firmly hooked into the bars of a hen coop that had been thrown to him from the quarter-deck. "Oh, sir," he cried. "Oh, sir, I'm so sorry. Oh, how I hope we haven't missed the chase." "Are you hurt?" "Not at all, sir, but I'm so sorry." Then clap onto my hair. The captain wore it.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?